It's 1993, January 17th on a Sunday afternoon. We're in Candlestick Park for a showdown between the 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys for the right to play in the Super Bowl.
I'm Pat Summerall here with John Madden. And John, a lot of talk about the weather, the field, all that kind of stuff, but you just have to put that out of your mind.
And I think now just watching the Cowboys go out there for their introduction, that's the last thing in their mind.
It's midway into the fourth quarter, and Dallas is leading the 49ers 24-13, but the 49ers is driving into Dallas's territory. A touchdown will change the course of the game and give momentum back to the 49ers, which the Cowboys had for the majority of the afternoon. But when Ken Norton intercepted Steve Young, the game to most fans was over.
Brent Jones, the intended receiver. That's the third San Francisco turnover. Emmitt Smith. Smith to the 49ers 17. Aikman back to throw to Novacek.
Get over those plays.
On third down, Smith with the lead draw. Might be a little bit short.
Dallas moved the ball to the 7-yard line, but instead of kicking the field goal on fourth down to take a 27-13 lead, Jimmy Johnson opted to go for it. It was 4th and 1, and they did have the best short yard gain running back in football, Emmitt Smith. And it wasn't like the 49ers were stopping the run during the game anyway. It was a calculated decision, because if you kick the field goal, you're up by 14 points with 7 minutes on the clock. Dallas's defense has been amazing all afternoon, but it's still the 49ers who still have the greatest receiver in the history of football, and Steve Young, who wasn't bad either. On the other hand, if they went for the first down and made it and then scored a touchdown, the game is over. No one was surprised when Jimmy Johnson decided to go for it on fourth down. What they were surprised about was when the leading rusher in football didn't make it.
For the first down, the handoff is to Emmitt Smith. I don't know if he made it or not. A lot of motioning by the 49ers, and they hold.
It turned out to be a drastic mistake, because not only did they give the ball back to Steve Young and Jerry Rice, momentum switched for the first time all afternoon. Dallas couldn't give up a touchdown, not at this pivotal moment in the game. One touchdown would put pressure back on a young and inexperienced football team. Besides, Jimmy Johnson had the #1 defense in football, who had dominated the game up until this point. No way were they going to allow the 49ers to travel 93 yards down the field. They didn't give up that all year. The 49ers did exactly what we thought was impossible. They drove 93 yards down the field.
Young to throw it. Just does get it out to Ricky Waters. Waters.
More shots here.
Waters again. Broke one tackle, breaks another one. And outside, a lot of room. Mike Sherrard this time, and they move into Dallas territory.
Young and Rice connected on the 5-yard touchdown.
Here's his 28th effort. Touchdown Rice.
Now things tighten up on that Cowboy sideline. Because they think, had they kicked the field goal, 2 touchdowns, they could have tied.
And instead of kicking that field goal earlier, which would have made it a 7-point lead, the 49ers knocked the lead down to 4 points. If you thought momentum had changed before, it was sky high now. The 49ers had just accomplished 2 impossibilities. They stopped perhaps the greatest short yard running back in history from gaining 1 yard, and they marched 93 yards down the field against the #1 rushing defense in the league. The tides was changing.
The losing team is out. The winning team goes to the Super Bowl.
And it looked like the 49ers was about to do it again. In fact, this needs a deep rewind. This rivalry dates back to the 1970s when the Cowboys defeated the 49ers in the 1970 NFC Championship game and again in the 1971 NFC Championship game.
And the Dallas Cowboys on the verge of winning the National Football Conference title.
But tensions really increased after the Cowboys routed a 49ers team 59-14 in 1980.
He audible to play at the line of scrimmage and threw it out. Perfect pass and got it between Melvin Morgan.
A lot of movement prior to the snap.
Dallas scored 8 touchdowns, which set a franchise record that lasted for 4 decades.
And that'll be the ball game. Dallas with a 38-7 halftime lead and moving out to a 59-14 victory over the San Francisco 49ers.
According to Walsh, the Cowboys, America's team, was too arrogant after the game.
Now, the one thing they'll do is take a swing at you. If you hit them good, they'll take a swing. There's 4 or 5 guys that are demented on that team, and you'll probably read about them. A couple of big, handsome guys that have got a mind about that big. I'm sick of them. I hope you guys are way out here. That Danny White, he knows he's not going to play, so he's the guy mouthing off.
What Landry and the Cowboys didn't know was that the win ignited a rivalry.
The Dallas Cowboys in 1981 represented where we wanted to be. They were America's team. They had been to Super Bowls and won Super Bowls.
America's team badly needed to win today. The Dallas Cowboys, symbol of virtue.
Obituaries were being prepared to tell us of the approaching demise of America's team.
The Dallas Cowboys, the winningest football team in the 70s, 105 wins from 1970 till now.
They were the darling of the NFL. They had just become too arrogant about it.
Some were heard to mumble that all the theatrical razzle-dazzle is threatening to swallow the sport whole.
And somebody needed to knock them down.
The next season, the teams met up again, and according to Wash, this was the best game he ever coached.
Here's Montana looking. Solomon touchdown. Montana 6 out of 7. He has the big horses in there.
The 49ers revenged the embarrassing loss just a year ago by routing the Cowboys 45-14. It was Landry's worst loss in a decade.
Bill Walsh has to be ecstatic about his team's performance today.
Yesterday he said he felt that they could do it. You know, he felt that maybe for the first time they could match up against the Dallas Cowboys.
I just wanted our team to be competitive and have some respect in the National Football League, because we didn't.
For the 49ers, this set a precedent for the rest of the season, all the way up to the 1981 NFC Championship game.
Is 6 yards away from his 6th Super Bowl. And of course, for the upstart 49ers.
That game is now known in NFL lore as the catch. Late in the fourth quarter, Joe Montana threw up a prayer to Dwight Clark for the go-ahead touchdown. The Cowboys did have another chance of a miracle of their own. On the first play from scrimmage, White perfectly in Staubach fashion hit Drew Pearson for a 31-yard reception, bringing the Cowboys over the midfield line. The Cowboys was only 10 to 15 yards out of field goal range. Remember, all they needed was a field goal to have a miraculous chance of winning of their own. But if it wasn't for a horse collar tackle, Drew Pearson would have scored a potential game-ending touchdown. After calling a timeout, White took the first snap but was sacked and fumbled by Lawrence Pillars in the process. Let's fast forward back to the game in 1992. Remember, the 49ers had just put together another miraculous drive, much like they did in 1981, that would put pressure back on the Dallas Cowboys offense once again. And remember, it's 2024 and Dallas is still leading, but the 49ers has stolen all momentum. Dallas has the ball with 4:22 left on the clock.
They got a 4th down play, they didn't do it, and now they let the 49ers back in the game, and now they have a heck of a fight in their hands.
Will the Cowboys fold like they did before 1981 versus the same team? Or would they reap vengeance on the 49ers, who has left unhealed wounds in the franchise, its fans, and its city for over a decade? We find ourselves back in this same place once more. But this time, it was our time, our year, our championship, our legacy, and finally, our payback. On the ensuing drive of the first play, just like White did in 81, Aikman threw a beautiful 14-yard pass to Harper, but this time, there was no horse collar tackle. Harper ended up running for a 70-yard gain to the 49ers' 9-yard line. 3 plays later, Calvin Martin scored on a 6-yard touchdown catch, making it 30-20 with 3:43 to play. The 49ers attempted one last drive to come back, but Young was intercepted by free safety James Washington at the 2-minute warning.
You get in a game that you realize that your season is over, and there's a point in a game that you realize you're going to the Super Bowl, and those are extremes of emotions.
Pass is picked off by Washington, and Dallas will take over. Sherrard was the intended receiver, and the Cowboys advance to the Super Bowl.
Just like the 49ers dynasty started in 1981, the Cowboys would start a dynasty of their own in similar fashion. Thanks for watching, and give a thumbs up and subscribe if you want more content.